My understanding is that the New Republic is a leftist magazine, and they have this article, this story, Antifa is arming itself against a Trump crackdown. Will leftist pro-gun groups deter political violence or inflame it? Well, in my opinion, they will inflame it. Because listen, when you have people who show up with guns, then other people show up with guns. I'm not going to act like the left started showing up with guns. It was the right. You had a lot of people like the Oath Keepers, I believe the 3%ers, they show up to events, they have guns. So Redneck Revolt and other groups have started getting armed. Here's the thing. It's not the right that typically starts the violence. It's the left. So now that the left is showing up with guns, I think it's just going to get worse. So let's take a look at this story from the New Republic. Before we get started, you can head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There is a PayPal option, a crypto option, and a physical address. But of course, share the video if you think it's worth sharing, because YouTube doesn't suggest my videos like they used to because there's been a big crackdown on politics. But let's get to the news. Now, again, the New Republic, I believe, is far left. So it'll be interesting to see what their opinion on left-wing arming is. But I will stress, I feel like we're seeing these are the precursors to some kind of civil conflict. When you have left-wing groups and right-wing groups that think one side is fascist and the other side is communist or whatever, at some point someone's going to get shot, right? I mean, if the guns are there, violence breaks out, someone will overreact. I don't think it's going to be the trained, honest, like people who know how to use guns. The people who come out to these rallies who are armed, like even Oath Keepers and even Redneck Revolt, in my experience, tend to be trained. They know what they're doing. They're not just crazy people who picked up guns. But I will say, you will eventually get some crazy person who says, I want to do this too. And that person will overreact. But let's read. Liberals are notoriously loath to take their own side in a fight, but their reticence may well be changing in an age of vigilante white nationalist terror. Openly condoned and supported by an incumbent president. What? Incumbent president? Sure. He's his first term. Who has suggested that his armed devotees won't stand for his removal from office. Increasingly, the Antifa left is arguing and training in response. They are worried not only about an armed reckoning following a contested election, but also about rising violence from the paramilitaries loyal to President Donald Trump. Consider the tense political climate in the Pacific Northwest, where Washington State Representative Matt Shea, a dough-faced Christian dominionist from Spokane, made news last year when his instructions on how to build a holy army that would kill all males who refuse to submit to biblical law leaked to the press. I'm not going to read this. What do you say? Assassination to remove tyrants is just not murder, he wrote. The tyrant he referred to was not Trump, of course, but the communists he imagined running the government. Such paranoid fantasies may be familiar to heavy consumers of YouTube and Reddit, but watching them transposed onto the structures of governance is a novelty. As a result, many leftists and even some liberals are beginning to reconsider their feelings about firearms, joining a loose amalgamation of gun groups, from John Brown gun clubs, which take their name from the abolitionist, to the Pink Pistols, an LGBTQ group, Liberal Gun Club, and Socialist Rifle Association. Some of these organizations are moderate and traditionalist, others radical and revolutionary, but all share one implicit goal: to normalize firearm ownership and training among liberals. Some of their members hope such efforts will at least make Republicans think twice before attempting a massacre. So I'll ask you this about Republicans. When has a Republican done that? There have been ridiculous fringe extremists, sovereign citizens, and white nationalists, but Republicans are like run-of-the-mill middle America and flyover states who go to church on Sundays. This is the big problem I see with escalation. The far left isn't looking at the fringe right. They're looking at Republicans. They're looking at conservatives and saying, you're the bad guy. When you talk about far-right violence, they think conservatives are the same group. They're not. They're different. Just like I can recognize, excuse me, that Democrats are not the same as the far-left extremists. You know, if I see a Democrat on the street, it's probably just some dude who, like, voted for Barack Obama or something. It's different from Antifa. In fact, when you look at these protests, like even the protest where Antifa attacked Andy Ngo, you will see people try to protect and stop the violence. Now, they get attacked by Antifa because Antifa is crazy, but, you know, there you go. There's a difference. The far left doesn't see the difference. The far right does. The far right, you know, crazies know that regular Democrats aren't the far left. They're still crazy, and they'll still try to hurt people. Here's, excuse me, here's the New Republic equating Republicans with the worst of the worst on the right. And that spells danger for Republicans. Because when Trump supporters want to go out and just say like, hey, I voted Republican, then these far leftists come out and attack them, calling them white supremacists, etc. Let's read on. Whether that approach will inflame political violence, especially in hotspots like the Pacific Northwest, or deter it remains uncertain. In April, Shea spoke at an open carry rally in Olympia, which drew hundreds of people, many armed with AR-15s and shotguns. About 10 members of the Puget Sound John Brown Gun Club were also there, handing out flyers mocking Shea, and another speaker, Joey Gibson of Patriot Prayer, who they said attracted and embraced. I'm not going to read. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to read what they said. Want to defend your community from people like Matt Shea, one flyer asked. At the moment, the Puget Sound John Brown Gun Club, which was founded less than 4 months after Trump took office, has around 30 active members. But its firearm safety and marksmanship workshops fill up faster every time the club hosts them. Full members undergo lengthy vetting, but anyone can come to learn how guns work, what the parts are, and how to handle them safely before going to the range and learning to shoot. We're talking about white liberals, mostly women, who are like, let's get this class going. The club's founder, Duke Aaron, said, 2 years ago, these people would be like, guns, this is terrible. That's not the reaction now. You know what that sounds like to me? Escalation. The good news is for the two-way proponents, hey, you get liberals on your side, they're not going to ban guns. The bad news is this leads to dramatic escalation. Hopefully, it doesn't come to that. But I think it will, because the rhetoric has been flowing in one direction. They're calling Republicans the worst of the worst. They're saying Republicans may commit a massacre. That's absurd. And they're buying guns. If these people are really unhinged and think there's evil demons voting for Trump and that everyone's, a racist, then they're going to feel justified in doing what they do. Think about the rhetoric they put up by Matt Shea where he claimed that, killing a tyrant was justified. They think the same thing. They justify the attack on Andy Ngo. What do you think's going to happen when they have guns now? It's just escalation, but let's read on. They say, Trump deserves most of the blame for this particular uptick in gun sales. And there was an uptick after Obama got elected. It happens. In March, he told Breitbart, I have the support of the police, the support of the military, the support of the bikers for Trump. I have the tough people. It would be very bad, if his followers decided to play it tough in those remarks. Some saw not Trumpian swagger or machismo. Adrian Bonenberger, an Afghanistan combat veteran, writer, and member of the Socialist Rifle Association, told me, but an incredibly thinly veiled threat. Not all threats these days come veiled. Former Trump advisor Roger Stone has used the Proud Boys, here we go, a group of neo-fascist men who describe themselves as Western chauvinists, as his own private security force. Border militias have been conducting vigilante operations against suspected undocumented immigrants, but these are all different groups. They're not unified. And not only that, the Proud Boys are pro-free speech. I don't see how you can actually call that, neo-fascist. But let's jump forward and get closer to the end because we're kind of getting closer wrapping up. They say Bonenberger believes it would take at least 20 years to create a force to rival the conservative militias that boast tens of thousands of members. By comparison, Antifa has a combined membership in the low thousands, and even fewer people belong to armed leftist groups. They have been responsible for only a handful of attacks in recent years. In April, the FBI announced it had thwarted a plot by a veteran who had been planning to target white nationalists in Los Angeles, but the bomb was fake. It had been supplied by FBI agents. Polls show conservatives remain twice as likely as liberals to own guns, and that won't change anytime soon. Even if it did, it wouldn't alter the underlying problems. The climate of vigilante violence on the right has elevated racist attacks, hate crimes, and terrorism in our political culture. And this is the dangerous rhetoric. They are telling the left, hey, here's guns. Look what the right is doing. But they're not creating a dissociation between the crazy right-wingers, like the far-right fringe weirdos, and regular old Republicans. They're viewing them as the same group. They say even veterans of leftist armies caution against forming one in America. If people want to prepare for revolution, they should become labor organizers, said Brace Belden, a former volunteer with a Kurdish communist militia turned factory organizer back home in San Francisco. Matriculating anyone from a gladiator school in the service of any agenda may be the sort of stress test our democracy wasn't engineered to withstand. I'll tell you what's going to happen. You saw the rhetoric. I've explained the point. These people show up with guns, conservatives show up with guns. Eventually, someone throws a bottle. Someone goes, some crazy leftist, or somebody gets scared and fires the weapon. Somebody draws the weapon. The conflict occurs. A crazy person could trigger the Civil War by going out on purpose armed and starting the fight. It is not good for people to be armed, regardless of your political faction, when you at these events, because it will get bad. Let me know what you think. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment will be tomorrow at 10:30. Podcast every day at 6:30 p.m., and I will see you all then.